But we're going to start off with Matthew Krumholtz, who accepted my invitation to come and talk to us today. Matthew is a 2015 English PhD from Princeton and was a member of Princeton University's NEH Next Gen Planning Committee. Princeton was part of the previous round of grant recipients from the NEH. So he was involved with that. He is also the founder of his own consultancy, MK Impact, which is designed to help corporations and other organizations come up with strategies to realize their social impact goals. And then that led into his current position as head of philanthropic and strategic partnerships for Huffington Post. So it's great that Matthew accepted our invitation to be here, and I'd like to ask him to come up and say a few words.
So I'm really very happy to be here and excited to be part of the conversation that you all are leading across campus about the future of humanities education. And I want to thank Glenn for arranging this fantastic program today. It's also, as Glenn mentioned, since I was part of an iteration of this at Princeton a year ago, it's a chance for me to reflect on the learnings that came out of that experience and hopefully share some of that with you today. I want to focus my remarks on two key themes, which are entrepreneurship and sustainability, which may seem like they have nothing to do with each other at first, and have nothing to do with this larger question of career horizons for humanities PhDs. But I want to make the case that they should be thought of together, entrepreneurship and sustainability, but that they're also a really good way of framing the conversation about career opportunities, value propositions, and pathways for people with humanities PhDs outside of the human academy. I've had a very, to begin and back up a bit, my own career trajectory at this point, under the rubric of entrepreneurship. I've had a very non-traditional career path, one that's been quite non-linear. But in many ways, the unexpected swerves in my path and opportunities that have arisen along the way really convinced me of the value of the humanities PhD, its wide applicability, and the resilience of the training that goes into humanities doctoral work. So I received my PhD, as Glenn said, from Princeton's English department in 2015. And my dissertation and research focused on four forms of dialogue that were invented in the 20th century and used by writers and filmmakers to ignite social movements, from psychoanalysis at the turn of the 20th century to the civil rights movement at mid-century. As I was finishing the dissertation, and so this is spring semester of 2016, and heading toward completing the degree, I was also teaching 2 days a week at Princeton. January of 2016, I took on an internship to fill the time of the other 3 days at a Wall Street firm. It was a mission-driven Wall Street firm, which was very much a startup at that point. And I came on board as an intern to help build out their communications practice. And even though given my background, I haven't had a traditional communications background, what this particular organization was looking for was somebody who was able to work between and among disciplines, really being able to translate the priorities of the investment and financial communities to nonprofit and philanthropic divisions. So it was really that sort of translation component that they were really looking for, and that I was looking to sort of build out myself. So when I finished the degree, this was May of 2016, I really came on board with this nonprofit, this sort of hybrid Wall Street firm, full-time as a contractor around their communication strategy. But it also gave me the opportunity to kind of build my network with a range of mission-driven organizations. So in philanthropy, in the nonprofit space, with mission-driven investors. And from there, I was able to branch out and work with digital media companies as well, and launch my own consultancy, MK Impact, in the same year, based on the relationships that I had built from that first internship on Wall Street through my work with digital media companies. And so having launched MK Impact, being able to work with a range of mission-driven organizations under that umbrella really led me to HuffPost. I came on board again as a consultant, working with them through my consultancy in March of 2016. I started with them. And I really came on board to help them with a very targeted but newsroom-wide initiative on sleep health and wellness, which, as some of you may know, is Ariana Huffington's big sort of project at the moment. She left in August of 2016, and it really created a lot of uncertainty and opportunity at HuffPost, so that we have changed virtually everything about our newsroom. Our leadership, we have a fantastic new editor-in-chief, Lydia Polgreen, who came from the New York Times, and she redoubled our commitment to social, economic, and environmental justice. So as a result of that shakeup, and I should say we also changed our name, sort of having it from Huffington Post to HuffPost, reflecting the change in the culture, but also in our mission. My role changed as well, and I came on board full-time at that point to lead our philanthropic strategy and partnerships. So what my role is in a nutshell is to work with foundations, a range of foundations, private foundations, corporate foundations, small family foundations, to bring in new revenue to the newsroom, to build out long-term, ambitious editorial projects around those priorities of social, economic, and environmental justice. And so just to step back, because it may seem a bit odd that a media company has a philanthropic division, especially a for-profit organization like ours, a for-profit media company. But just to say, it's no secret to anyone that the ad revenue model for journalism is not working, and that in fact newsrooms are being hollowed out and collapsing on the basis of that failed model. This is a stream of revenue that media companies across the US are really looking to develop. The Times started theirs within the last year. The Guardian's been doing this really as a pioneer for a long time. But it's a way of bringing in new revenue, that all of which goes to editorial in case of philanthropic funding. And you're able to do long-term projects that you wouldn't otherwise be able to tackle, and projects that wouldn't necessarily be candidates for commercial sponsorships or funding from ad dollars. So as an example of a project that I developed to give you a kind of concrete sense of where my work falls, we with grant funding from two funders, a donor collaborative from Switzerland and a US-based foundation, we developed a 2-year project starting in October of last year and going into next year around the new economy movement. Basically, a series of systems change initiatives that are happening on the local community level around the world that are fighting to make the economy work for more people and for the planet, which is completely novel, especially in this time. And our editorial platform is to really spotlight success stories, initiatives that are working, and to sort of amplify those stories for our general, our wide audience. In addition, the funding also goes to our partner at MIT Sloan School of Management. They've developed a learning platform that essentially convenes stakeholders from academics, change makers, subject area experts within the new economy to, in essence, to connect the dots around these initiatives in a very fractured movement. One in which what's happening in Oakland might be very similar to what's happening in Cleveland, and yet those organizations don't have really the capacity to be in touch with each other and to learn from each other. So MIT's platform is meant to really fill in that gap. So while we're reaching a general audience around this topic, we're pushing a more interested, dedicated audience segment toward what MIT is doing as part of this initiative. And what I love about it too is it's a chance for us to build this sort of new model of journalism, one that's very collaborative, but it's I think its core advantage is about the unlikely alliance of an educational institution and a digital media platform connecting around something that we both care about and where we both have expertise to leverage and are doing it in very different ways, but really on a kind of parallel track. To shift towards sustainability, which I think is in many ways why we're all here and why the NEH is interested in this question of futures. How do you make humanities education sustainable, and how do you make career pathways for those of us with deep expertise in the humanities sustainable as well? I think we're really at an inflection point where there are greater numbers of people thinking holistically and in an integrated way about sustainability in the humanities. And I'm encouraged really both by the NEH's investment in this work in the Next Gen grants, and also by the MLA's effort, the Connected Academics program, which I was a part of as part of their inaugural cohort in 2015-16. And for those of you who don't know about that program, it was a Mellon Foundation funded project, 3-year grant essentially, that allowed for the MLA to convene a group of between 20 and 30 doctoral students or recent PhDs in languages and literature programs in the tri-state area, and brought us all to New York City to really conduct site visits with a range of organizations and education institutions that are accommodating professional homes for people with humanities issues. So the New York Public Library, the Mellon Foundation, CUNY's Future Initiative, for example, Humanities New York was on site visits. I think what drew us in initially were those site visits, getting to know the terrain, the landscape of potential job opportunities. What was surprising, I think, to all of us, in my cohort at least, was that the cohort itself was of such great importance and value, and really continues to be that for many of us. it became a knowledge sharing platform for those of us looking in different directions toward different job opportunities within the academy, some of us, and outside of the academy for others of us. And we were able to sort of share best practices, what was working in our home departments, what wasn't working in others, and building our networks on that basis. So I really took the energy from those conversations and the learnings about the cohort from the MLA Pro Seminar into my participation with the Next Gen grant at Princeton. And I'm happy to say that in our final white paper at the end of that year-long grant, we did adopt an idea at Princeton to establish a kind of interdisciplinary humanities cohort that would really cut across the very siloed divisions of humanities departments and get graduate students in the doctoral phase, in the dissertation phase, talking to each other about tools and methods, professional development opportunities, even those who are laser focused on the academic market would be able to benefit from sharing methodologies with peers in departments that they might not be in touch with otherwise. And for those people curious about other potential opportunities, it's a good way of really getting a very very fair assessment of the landscape of job opportunities. Just to close with sort of 3 big ticket lessons that have emerged for me through these experiences, Pro Seminar and Mentorship Grant, and also through my sort of career path to this point. I think first and foremost, it's important to define the value and the impact that our work in the humanities has on the world. I think we're all very used to talking about the impact of our work within our field, the intervention that our dissertation is having within a specific field or a group of related fields, and less adept at pulling back, zooming out, and thinking, what is the larger impact that my teaching, my research, the skills that I'm developing in the humanities having or could have on the world? Secondly, I think it's really important, as early as possible, to create a parallel track for yourself within your doctoral program. Whether that's an internship, for example, or simply networking outside of your field. Networking across the university with other humanities students in different departments, with professional schools going to those events. Networking as broadly as you can to really get a good sense of where people with humanities training have landed. One reason I think that's an important thing to do is that people tend to get locked into a kind of one-track vision for what this kind of training leads to, which, in other words, a tenure track job at the university. To pull yourself out of that as much as possible, I think is really important, so that we don't end up simply defining ourselves and the practices and skills that we've developed only in terms of degree or in terms of a university setting. And then finally, just to become adept at articulating what skills we're building within a humanities doctoral program. And for me, there are 3 in particular I always point to, a kind of constellation of transferable skills that we all share by virtue of our humanities training, and that make us very well suited to addressing challenges in sectors and industries well beyond the university. So those three specific skills are consensus building, knowledge sharing, and multidisciplinary thinking. We're all, as teachers, very good at guiding conversations around provocative and unfamiliar ideas toward a consensus. And also very good at and familiar with sharing our expertise and our skills within a range of platforms, whether publications, conferences, classrooms. I think the most important of those three particular skills is multidisciplinary thinking. And I'll just echo back to the fact that it was exactly that skill that allowed me to sort of pivot into a Wall Street startup, because they were looking for somebody to be able to sort of translate priorities across industries. I also think that multidisciplinary thinking is absolutely essential to collaboration, to innovation, and also to sort of being able to kind of get a systems level view of where problems exist and what solutions there are. So just to finish, I'm very optimistic, but extremely confident idea that I think humanities PhDs in particular have a leadership role to play in virtually every challenge that our world faces, whether it's climate change, social injustice, economic inequality. I would love to see more humanities PhDs in industries and sectors that are beginning to sometimes at the leading edge and sometimes lagging behind solutions to these issues. Precisely because of those skills that I mentioned, but also because of our explanatory and interpretive skills, our ability to see from a very high level view cultural shifts, cultural transitions, to be able to explain them in terms that resonate across broad audiences and galvanize action. I want to turn to you and just get a sense of what thoughts, questions, or ideas come to your mind. And I know there'll be time at lunch and afterwards as well. But really would love to hear from you as well.
You mentioned that the sustainability and philanthropic endeavors were generated revenue for
Yeah.
How?
So while we don't get a margin on grant funding, it does allow us, first of all, to build our reputation in the particular space. So the new economy is a great example. There's virtually very few publications, mainstream journalistic outlets I can name that are addressing this question. So giving us the funding to do 2 years of editorial around that issue and to go deep, first of all, helps with our brand reputation. We can build satellite projects around it that can attract corporate sponsorships, for instance. But it's, in essence, revenue that comes directly into editorial, that we're then able to hire freelancers or experts in that particular area as we have. We brought in 2 journalists who have run Guardian Sustainable Business, who are now out of our London office, managing those projects. So it also helps us sort of build a team around a specific topic.
I was just curious.
I mean,
ads
it
and the market and commercial, like,
right.
I'll pay you this to have this ad.
It's interesting because it can work well alongside. It's not just a replace the commercial funding opportunity. But it's an important supplement given how limited commercial sponsorships are in this market and how the ad funding stream is simply just not good as it was.
Yeah. We always talk about a crisis in the humanities and that we need to change training, that there are all these different things that we need to do in order to respond to this crisis. How much of it has to do with a kind of collective self-esteem problem? You talk about impact, and I don't think that humanities people are taught to articulate impact. But on the other hand, I also wonder how much humanities people believe in it, given how many sort of rueful comments we all from time to time are guilty of making about what we're doing. One thing I've come to figure out in working with students, I work in career services here, is people are often good at pointing out a gap in something and saying, all right, I'm going to respond, I'm going to fill this gap. But they never think about whether, or they don't articulate why it's an important thing to do that. We all can find something. Somebody was saying the other day to me, it's sort of like digging for bones somewhere that no one's dug before without necessarily considering whether there are any bones there to look for.
Right. I mean, it can be and it can feel like very specialized work. But it's also extremely collaborative work. I think that's important to remind ourselves constantly, but to remind each other. While it can feel like you're wrestling this one monster constantly, your dissertation, that is such a process of collaboration along the way. I mean, where you're entering into a specific dialogue in your discipline is extremely collaborative. And beyond all of the publications and conferences and meetings that have to go to support. But just to say also, I mean, it really is a question of framing. And I think we all have a responsibility to frame this in a proper way. I think that gives as much advantage to our training and expertise, I think, as possible. We live and we're constantly hearing about this sort of moment, this tech saturated that is so, it's one of so many disruptions. But I can't really think of anybody's training being better suited to these sort of moments of disruption, precisely because that's exactly what we're doing when we're writing this dissertation, wanting in a way to disrupt the field. I mean, that's what our conference papers and publications and books are all designed to do, and all around very large, big scale, historical, cultural questions, which are really in such short supply, I think, when it comes to these industries that are being disrupted, whether it's tech, media, and finance. So.
Two of the main examples that you gave of places you've worked in MLA and at Princeton were forming cohorts with your fellow PhD students. So I'm wondering a little bit about the role of faculty in supporting, helping to frame, providing obstacles. I mean, because I think that is always an issue that that comes into play in every generation. We want to create clones of ourselves, and we recognize the problems with that, but we still, I think, I'll speak for us in the collective sense, although I hope that I don't do that to my students. But I'm just wondering about the role of faculty in both of those opportunities that you engage in as a doctoral student.
So, first of all, I mean, it's exactly that, cloning practice which is unsustainable. I think we all know this. I mean, but so the question for me really is, and I'd really love to hear from your experience, and to sort of compare and contrast, what I know is the experience of Princeton. Is this kind of change best begun at the grassroots or grass tops? In other words, from administration, faculty down, or from students, from student-led organizations and initiatives? I think it's really an open question. I wouldn't want to speak in this service. But from my own sense, with the two initiatives and Princeton in particular, I think it really needs to happen from the grassroots, the student-led initiatives, whether it's cohorts, and that's why I'm so much in favor of that. It's first of all a way to bring in much more and much needed dialogue about public humanities, the public-facing value of our humanities work, which I don't think is happening as much at Princeton as I'd like to see. It also helps to the question about how we frame our expertise in a way that allows us to think beyond a kind of one-track pipeline, for example. But my sense is that there will be faculty that are supportive and understand the urgency, even if they feel constrained by their own lack of ability to advise deeply on how to. They'll at least be open to those conversations. Some of them, I hope will. For those that are just reluctant or hostile to the idea of a number of other pathways, my best sense is that they need to be sort of left behind. That this train is left at the station. I mean, whether or not they want to get on board is not, you can't hold back the fact that this conversation needs to continue to happen and really efforts really need to be deepened on those cases.
But join me in thanking Matthew for